Hi, good to see you again. I hope you are doing good. Me too is doing good. As I discussed with you on the last turn that we shall be talking more on these uh, chemical warfare agents. We talked on the last in the last lecture on perhaps on what was that? I'm not remembering it. But today we are going to talk on mustards, sulfur mustard, nitrogen mustard. Why do we call them as mustards? Because they smell like a mustard. They smell like garlic. They smell like horseradish. Therefore, we call them as mustards. There are two types of mustards. One is the sulfur mustard, and the another one is the nitrogen mustard. The warfare, chemical warfare has used sulfur mustard in World War One as well as in World War Two. And even very recently, it has been used by ISIS against Kurds. It has been used by Syria. Earlier in World War One, it was used by Germany against the British. In Second World War, World War Two also, it was used by Germany because it was in 1916 that a German chemist synthesized this mustard. So, mustard is a very important war chemical. It is not a gas, but it is a liquid. Like as we were talking about those gases, nerve agents, they are not nerve gases. They are not gas, but it is a liquid, and therefore it is better to call them as nerve agents. Similarly, it is better to call these sulfur mustards not as gases but simply mustards. It has got a chemical formula C4H8Cl2S. The International Union for Pure and Applied Chemistry suggests this formula for the mustard, sulfur mustard, because it is having S. If we replace it with N, it will become nitrogen mustard. C4H8Cl2N is the nitrogen mustard, and C4H8Cl2S is the sulfur mustard. They are liquids, they are soluble in fats, they are not soluble in water. The boiling point is very high, 217 degrees centigrade. It has been reported that they boil at 217 degree, more than 200 degrees centigrade. As far as the toxicity of these mustards is concerned, we will have to take a systematic approach. First, we will have to see the absorption. If a person or a soldier is exposed to sulfur mustard, it will be absorbed by skin, it will be absorbed by nose, it will be absorbed by ingestion. So these three portals of entry are there. One is the skin, the second one is the nose, the respiratory system, and third was the ingestion. So all these three systems are badly affected by sulfur mustard. And next to absorption, you will find the synonyms of mustards are blistering agents. They are also called as blistering agents. Mustards, sulfur mustards, nitrogen mustards, blistering agents, and the sulfides also. These are some of the common names which has been given to these sulfides. Uses of these, it has got no other use except the the war chemical. It is used as a war chemical. There are no other industrial uses. It sometimes it is used with arsenic, levisite, arsine. They are used in combination either through sprays. They are used through sprays. They are used through rockets. They are used through through other methods which are adopted in a war. Then we come to the toxicokinetics. In toxicokinetics, it has been observed that these gases, they are mustards. They are 80% of them are immediately removed by the body, and it is the 20% which causes toxicity. And one very important thing about these mustards is that the latent period is 24 hours. For 24 hours, the soldier exhibits no symptoms of toxicity. After 24 hours, the symptoms are exhibited. So the latent period is 24 hours. Till 24 hours, there is nothing that we can observe, but after 24 hours, it exhibits these activities. 20% of that causes. There is one more word or term which is used for these gases, and that is incapacitating agents, because they incapacitate. And you will learn another term like LD50 and LC50. We call it as ICT50, incapacitating. Incapacitating time 50. How much time it will take to incapacitate a person. So they are also used for as a incapacitating agent. So we also call them as incapacitating agents. The target organs are hemopoietic system, bone marrow. The people suffer from leukemia, cancer, after exposure to mustards, because it affects the bone marrow. The spleen, the second organ to be affected is spleen, skin, liver, lungs. These are the susceptible organs for the mustards. And the byproduct of the metabolism is there are two byproducts. One is the hydrochloric acid, and another one is the thioudiglycol. And they are oxidized to sulfones. They are oxidized to sulfones. So, and they are having a very good, very high affinity for sulfhydryl groups in the proteins. So, they are very likely to bind with the proteins. That 20% which could not be metabolized and which remained in the body, that was able to bind with nucleic acids, that through the process of alkylation, that was able to cause mutations in the guanine, that caused a depurination, that produced changes into the purine moiety and the guanine moiety, and it was able to cause mutations, and those mutations led to the carcinogenic potential of the sulfates. This is the basic concept of toxicity of sulfates. Then when we pass on further, we find that in thiols also they have got a very specific affinity with cysteines. You know, cysteines, yesterday, no, not to you, but I was talking to your juniors about the selenocysteine, cysteines, methionine. They are the precursor molecules of glutathione, I have already discussed with you. So this is how the target organs are affected by mustards. Then we have got the toxicity. The toxicity is to DNA. Toxicity is to thiols. Toxicity is to the proteins. The toxicity is to enzymes. So the result is that these mustards, they are able to generate the reactive oxygen species, and those reactive oxygen species ultimately they are electrophiles, they bind with nucleophiles, and in this way they produce the toxicity. Another one very important point of sulfates is the cholinergic activity. We were talking about the nerve gases, and we were saying that they have got the cholinergic effect, means they inhibit acetylcholinesterase. The choline accumulates and causes the cholinergic effect. So they are also, these mustard are also having the cholinergic effect. Cholinergic, they affect the cholinergic system. So they affect the hemopoietic system, they affect the respiratory system, they affect the skin, and they also affect the eyes. If we very precisely talk about the human toxicity, we find that the after exposure to mustards, the people become blind, because the uppermost layer of the eye, that is the cornea, it develops edema. Cornea develops edema. The muscles of iris are paralyzed. They are not able to focus properly, though, so the soldier suffers from blurred vision. The vision is not clear, it's blurred. So eyes are affected, cornea is affected, the lens protein is affected. So eyes are the very, very important system to be affected by the mustards. The second effect is on nose. Rhinitis, the nasal epithelium gets affected. Then the trachea gets affected. The bronchi, they get affected. The lungs, they get affected. So the entire respiratory system falls victim. In skin, so as I told you, it is also called as a blistering agents. The blisters develop, blisters having a whitish yellowish fluid inside. Blister is जिसको कहते हैं कि छाला पड़ गया है या फपोला पड़ गया है, that has got the fluid inside, and they developed on arms and armpits. This is the armpit. So they develop on the skin, especially on arms, because the arms remain exposed to them, and they develop there at the armpits. The big balloon-like structures, they come out and they remain filled with the fluid, and they are very painful, very painful. So therefore it is called as blistering agent. The second thing is the respiratory system. They cause the problems with lungs. The lung epithelium gets damaged because of hydrochloric acid. It erodes, the lung epithelium erodes, the mucosal epithelium erodes, mucosa gets lost, and it ultimately it leads to respiratory failure. It leads to respiratory failure. Then bone marrow, lymph nodes, spleen. The the bone marrow is a hematopoietic system, spleen hematopoietic system. A number of the leukocytes is reduced in patients exposed to sulfur mustards, because it inhibits the formation of the leukocytes. So the number of the leukocytes goes severely down in patients exposed to mustards. So this is how it affects the hemopoietic system. Then it has been observed that it leads to sepsis, septic-like conditions. And then also it has been found that the external genitalia is also affected by this mustards. So you get one very important idea about that is incapacitating factor. Therefore, they are called as incapacitating agents. It is incapacitating factor, and it was declared by the Convention Against War Chemicals in 1993 that no country will stockpile the mustards. No country throughout the world will stockpile the mustards. But even then, as I told you, it causes chemical burns, and it causes severe respiratory failure, it causes cancer, it causes mutations. It leads to nervous system problems, eye problems. But even then, it has been used by Egypt's again Yemen. Egyptians used mustards against Yemen. In Yemen, ISIS used against Kurdish in 2015, just 5 years back. Syria used against its own people. Still, the Syria war continues. We are not supposed to comment on these political issues because we are not political people. We are toxicologists. Our main job is to study their toxicity. So as far as their toxicity is concerned, the mustards justify their name because they smell like mustards. They are blistering agents because they cause blisters. They are irritants because they are irritating to nose, they are irritating to throat, they are irritating to the bronchi, they are irritating to lungs, and in this way they induce toxicity. There is one very important point about the sulfur mustards, that they are there is one more concept along with this incapacitating factor, that is the lethal factor, lethal toxicity, lethal concentration, LCT50, ICT50 and LCT50. And for human beings, it remains to be 1500 milligrams per cubic meter. And as far as the animal experiments are concerned, I don't know whether some animal experiments have been conducted on these mustard gases. Somebody must have done it, but it is not available in literature. What are the effects on animals? So it is very difficult to say or to comment on the effects on animals, but effects on men are widely documented. It's already documented that these effects, they are caused by the sulfur mustards. Similarly, we know very little about the nitrogen mustards, but we know sufficient on sulfur mustards. That is C4H8Cl2S. We are talking of C4H8Cl2S. I think I have given you a brief account of the mustard gases. We should not call them as mustard, but sulfur mustard, and it will help you in understanding it. Maybe in my book on environmental pollution and toxicology, you may find some description of these mustard gases. Thank you for watching. We shall continue teaching.